Okay, hopefully it's working now again. Um, yeah, so just trying to continue on this. I got sidetracked with some other stuff. Um, so briefly started, um, well, it should be possible to get this ALPN stuff working. Um, and the thing I was wrestling with was that how you actually will reset the once you get the new certificate, how do you get that set to be the used certificate um, on all of the child processes? Because you also, if you look at the child fork worker that creates, it's got, you have the SSL main context that has the information, and I'm currently setting that before the fork. And then when you do accept TLS, it calls the SSL accept in this case on the SSL context. And somehow I normally or initially get set here in init. It's creating a certificate and everything and then sets it onto the thing if it fails to load the like local one, which is I guess the other option is that you can potentially write this stuff. Um, Initially, we'll just do that. Is that you'll write the certificate to this spot, um, so it'll be used when you reload. So we're going to try the. I guess that is the uncomplicated thing. So if this fails to load, you have to start looking at these things. If this fails, you have to here figure out um, whether or not we're actually trying to um, if we're in dev mode, I think you just create the certificate. But that's the other question is like I think it can just be the same certificate you would create to be used with the ALPN thing because I think the ALPN doesn't check anything at all about the certificate other than the like pieces of information it needs. So I think if this fails, you would then, if you're in dev mode, you just do this. And if you're not in dev mode, you're going to assume that you need to do um, the SSL cert stuff. So I guess that's what I need to look into first is how you make that request. What your first acme request is to the Let's Encrypt that it gives you the server you would use for that. And then I think it's a fairly straightforward, annoying, but I guess necessary JSON request. Um, and this is not, um, it's not very long. So, I mean, but this page is not long, but it's just about the thing, or this piece is only about the ALPN part. It's not talking about um the initiation bit, the initial call. But hopefully it's just like one initial call that then will do this, and then it does whatever, and then I guess the certificates should be generated that you can then download somehow or something. The signed certificate. So I don't know. I'm hoping it won't be that bad. We're not doing multiple IP addresses. Right. Second question, though. While I like this, the question is, could you just do the HTTP based and just assume? I just don't like that, though. So what happens then? So I am writing the Acme server. Ugh, this shit's annoying. Do you have to do all this signing shit in the other one? If I have to use this fucking Jose plus Jason shit, seems fucking annoying. So if we assume that just we're gonna have to somehow, well, not if we assume. Definitely you're gonna have to have HTTP or port 80 redirect to 443 anyway. So that supposedly works with the key thing. Um, um, so I think this is the thing. God, I hate this fucking. What is this shit at the top? Oh, just documents. Yeah, I want to look at the RFC edit. Oh my god, where is just a fucking plain text view? Wait, what if I put just. This is information. Oh, here we go. Well, I don't want entirely that. I just want you to not have all this shit. There we go. Why is it effort to find these? But the main point though is I don't want to have to listen on multiple ports on this server. Although I could probably do it. Just I don't know. Seems kind of annoying. So we'll see. So let's see. Um, we'll use something like generate a certificate request, cut and paste it, blah, prove ownership of the domain. Like, yeah, we're gonna get to this, but and the CSR of one of the following methods. Specific place on the web server. Yeah, she's like fucking 30. Whoa. Kelly LeBrock's now 65. I have weird science on in the background. Holy shit, Kelly LeBrock was married to Steven Seagal in the 87 and 96. Interesting. Bill Paxton as Chet in the movie is probably one of the best parts. Mm. My God, he just hit Anthony Michael Hall in the head with the shotgun barrel. That's like twice, and it just like seems to like not even bother him, basically, which is insane. I mean, it's obviously a rubber gun, but still. Mm. Okay, so the Acme client is going to be, in my case, inside the server. And I guess that means the Acme server that they referred to somewhere is the CA server, basically. Yeah. So I download it, just save it to a file, then restart the server. Client requested an account. This is another problem. I guess I have to save the account somewhere. Side point, I don't know if I mentioned this anywhere else. I think I was talking about it on my other recording of other work, but um what was I thinking? Oh, was that, if there's not a certificate, you could go into it. So, like in this case, you could go into like well, if there's not a certificate, or also like it's the first time you run it or whatever, it should go into like a limited web server version for setup that would do the certificate setup, would provide things like you got to put in the domain name somehow, although I think I was passing that as a parameter, but or as an environment variable. Um, but and then so you would have that sort of general like setup server state where none of the other stuff would be accessible at all. And you could also like claim the like, admin root admin user, um, set up that kind of stuff, first run type stuff. Um, and you would do the same for certificates. So like, yeah, I don't know if we'll fully go that route though. It may just not even be worth it. But it just means that like that core stuff, like once you've set it up or whatever, that core stuff doesn't really exist anymore as even things that somebody could access and potentially hack in regular operation. Because right now it does kind of do that where it's checking, all the time if if it's set up or not or whatever. Um, so that if there's like no user, it'll do the little user thing again or whatever. Or you can put in the admin user email. But um, yeah. So I don't know. We can do that later if necessary, but it is an idea. Blah blah. The crisis request is signed. The other thing about this is it will like be creating a new private key for every certificate. Where like in the past, if you're not automating stuff, it's like every certificate like renewal, they would just typically allow you to. I don't know. They may have. I don't know. I don't know which CAs might do this still or not, but in the past, like going back over the decades, it would take like you could just renew the certificate. Like you didn't have to like generate a new private key and get a new certificate signed. Like they would just re-sign the same one, which is terrible. Like it totally defeats the entire purpose of it expiring, and you are just paying for nothing again, which I've seen that mentioned. I think it was on the Caddy page. They mentioned that too. But I mean, that's like a pretty much fatal flaw in the entirety of your like private key system or public key cryptography system if you're not doing that. So Caddy does generate a new private key or whatever, I think, all the time. And so that's obviously what we're going to do as well. Not because they did it, but because it's the correct thing to do. What? Oh, key pair. Request a new account. So yeah, I've got this yet another key pair you've got to somehow that has to be stored in there. Which obviously, if they're thinking of this to be all automated, they have to assume that is stored on the server as well. Um, it's still kind of odd that you need an actual account, but whatever. I just can't state enough how much there was a Netflix revamp of the freaking their interface. I think it just finally came to my Roku. I think it's been on other devices already, but it's like it is fucking terrible. You can only see a total of 4 different items now on the screen at once, and one of those is taken up by this like 3 times the size thumbnail thing, and it's slow as shit to switch between them intentionally. So I don't. It's not processing power issue. It's just like it's just so laggy and shitty, and it's just like they spent a ton of time on this, people working on it, and it's like, man, I would just feel like complete shit if I were them. Like I've just wasted how much ever time it took for them to do this. Like I don't I think it's one of those scenarios potentially where they like hire a new person and they want to like put their stamp on it. And so if it was already good, it's probably going to turn out shitty then when they change it because it was good. So very seldom does it seem that they're like, same thing happened with Amazon Prime at one point. Amazon Prime's become a bit of a dumpster as they load up the ads, and their interface is generally unpleasant. Um, just from the way they, I don't know, spam. I don't know. Something about it is also terrible. Um, yeah, anyway, sidetrack. I guess it's about time to eat. So basically, I've got to send contact information, agree the terms of service, which theoretically, I guess you should be, that information needs to be shown. Um, there's a question of, I mean, I think it's just going to be that every one of these will have to be its own account, separate accounts. So I send that, I guess, to the account URL object, and then I get back an account object, I guess, or account URL. And then you send, what the fuck does this mean? Is that supposed to be there? All right. Oh, so you do just submit a CSR. Which this was another option that I don't know if I mentioned, was to start the little setup server as a separate thing where like you would set that limited setup server and then it would just exit out you would have the certificate in memory from that, and then just directly launch the main web server how it is. Basically, you'd call main web twice, and the first one would only call when there's setup, and when that exited, it would then start the main web server. It is a little better in that it doesn't require excessive, it doesn't require you to do a reboot, so you don't have to write the file out anywhere. Um, which I don't think would be terrible either, but I feel like I would need to do maybe an extra fork or something. Like you would have your main process and then a forked process that's the actual like main of the server, and then that would then fork the child processes for the worker HTTP workers. Um, which I think is kind of what I should probably have anyway. So you could end up with that main web server process being um, clean, and then avoid any sort of startup contamination maybe or something or whatever. But it would be cleaner when you exit it out and then started a new one. It's been a while since I did that code, so I can't say exactly how it works at this point. So I just turned on the Total Recall remake, which I think in its own right is not terrible. I mean, I still prefer the 1990 version, but Kate Beckinsale is supposedly an EMT, which seems a little bit absurd. Like, she should surely be able to get like a way better job based on her looks. Economy must be terrible. Okay, so they do the smart thing where you just submit a PKCS10 resident certificate and make it available to the client. Yeah, how does that work? So, orders, signature, required authorizations, responses, signature. Oh my God, how many back and forths is this? One, two, four plus another at least five for the post as get request. What? So that's when you're getting the certificate. What the fuck? Why did people ever? They've seen this before. Like, why is that even relevant? Like, it, whatever. I gotta remember to not just make random noise because it'll fuck up the later like compression to remove silence to find the important stuff. I don't need a long string of me just going, God, what am I doing? I guess the signature is they're saying that whatever this is then has a signature on it. So is this whole thing going to be going through the sign thing? What is that about? I guess you're signing it with your generated key pair from earlier. Oh, now I get it. The brackets are around the stuff that is information covered by request signatures. So you've got this, and then you've got to sign it, and chances are they're not doing AWS signing requests. It's probably that Josie plus Jason shit. The question I have is why can't this the like whole thing be I submit a CSR, none of this other shit. Well, submit the CSR. It also has any contact information that you are doing up here. This crap. You just include all this in the same thing. The CSR should just be in that. I don't know why we're doing all this crap. Um, like why can't you just post the CSR? It has the domain names and stuff. Then it does the validation bit based on the domain name for this thing you're requesting. It does DNS lookup and makes the call. And then that would just return the thing. And you could even know like, oh, they've done the validation call by hitting whatever URL, and now I can fetch the certificate. Um, or some like it just what's all the back and forth? It was the same thing with the initial TLS 1.2 and below. Apparently, that it was like you gotta you had to do 2 round trips at a minimum to get your connection going. And then with 1.3, you only have to do 1 round trip and can potentially do 0 round trip in some certain cases, but a single round trip seems fine for me. Although you would like for like actual data to come back in the response. So I don't know where they are on that. Anyway, like there's always protocol negotiation and all these things, and it's just like it's fucking stupid. I don't know. It just seems pointlessly complicated, leaning towards extensibility when like who gives a shit? You could have Acme 1 and Acme 2 and they could be just like totally fucking different and it wouldn't matter at all. You would easily just switch at the is it Acme 1 or Acme 2 and then do the right thing. And you don't need all this ridiculous nonsense. It seems like you're just asking for ways to like create problems. I need to look again at the underlying protocol. I think it's called noise protocol. That's the underlying thing for WireGuard to see how they do things because I think that's more what you really want. Anyway, enough about that. Yeah, here's another thing. It's like, oh yeah, we put all this flexibility to do different types of identifiers, but it's like, yeah, everybody just wants a fucking domain name. Like, you don't need all that shit. Just say it's a fucking domain name or host name. It's crazy. Mm. What other validation could you do automatically? I don't know. Or really, like, I mean, it's probably better on some level to request the certificate, I guess, to download from somewhere this thing, but to get back the certificate. But like, you would almost rather the server just post back to the host name and it just um the CA just posts the certificate directly to the host on the host name or something. Like after it's verified the DNS, which would be part of verifying the DNS. It's just looking up the DNS thing and see if you go back to the same server, right? So you just look it up and then you post it, and then you don't have to do this shit when it's you await issuance. What does that even mean? Is this gonna turn out that you're supposed to just like keep fetching it or something? At a minimum, it should post CA should post to the client that the certificate's ready. So I don't know if that happens, but I'm not sure. Anyway, whatever. I'm saying all this shit, but I don't actually know exactly how it works. Well, so anyway, character encoding. Ugh, it is Jason Webb signatures. Fuck. What a bag of dicks. It sometimes feels like they make these protocols like intentionally fucking garbage so that nobody wants to implement them and then they have to pay or use somebody else's already done implementation because they're just like, this is going to be a pain in the ass. Although this Jason Webb signatures thing isn't the end of the world. It's just annoying that you have to do it at all. Like, why does it have anything to do with anything? I am going to have to implement um, client certificates for authentication, though. I think that's the answer to a lot of my problems. Like, how can you do authentication without people having a password and without having to do like an email verification step? You could still have like a big like multiple account recovery team, like one time pad style stuff. Um, that you could use like if you really lose it. Okay, but I'm gonna come back. I gotta eat.